Okay, I'll stop.
And we are live. Hi, this is Mike Huberty from American Ghost Walks and the See You on the Other Side podcast. And right now I am hanging out with my sister and fellow Fortean investigator, Allison Jornlin. And,
Allison Jordan.
and true
Hi,
weirdo,
everybody.
Allison Jornlin. All right, so I hope everybody's having a nice day today. You start to go a little bit crazy in quarantine. Oh, and it looks like Scott Marcus from What's Your Ghost Story and Wendy from the See You on the Other Side podcast are here too. So let's bring them on. There they are in the edge. So all three of us are on the screen right now.
Yay.
Okay.
The gang's all here.
The gang is all here. That is true. So, yeah. So anyway, just thought it'd be a good day for some haunted history and talking about weird stuff live on Facebook. That's about it. So if you guys haven't seen See You on the Other Side or heard See You on the Other Side podcast before, it is a podcast about strange paranormal things, and then we write a song about it every week. And
If you haven't heard of it by now, you must be under a rock.
I was gonna say, pretty lame. No, it's quite all right. But you may be here.
It's not okay.
You may be here because you've gone on a haunted history tour. And that's why we want to talk about some ghost stories today. Just because we can't get outside to the ghosts doesn't mean that the spiritual activity has stopped. And since if you look at your social feeds over the past day, everything is pretty much doom and gloom and fairly depressing. We wanted to do some stuff that wasn't depressing. And so we wanted to have an episode about the happiest ghost stories we can find. Now, a lot of ghost stories don't start off happy because somebody's got to die. But that doesn't...
That's true.
Right. That doesn't mean...
There's a lot of death and dismemberment in ghost stories. Let's just face it.
There certainly is.
One good thing is that ghosts cannot catch the coronavirus.
That's true.
You could actually still be out there hunting ghosts now. You do not need to maintain social distance from ghosts, just to be clear.
That's true. You can get as close to a ghost as you like.
We have not researched that. Okay, you're taking your life in your own hands, but let's face it, you always have been when you're out there ghost hunting. Zach Baggins will tell you.
That's true. All right. Okay. I'm gonna. I can't use my call recorder right now, so I'm gonna jump on to my recording program so that we can record this conversation. So for the people who can't join us today, can join us on the See You on the Other Side podcast stands. Can join us there. So let me put that in here.
So I can tell a little story, kind of a pre-story, not part of the main thing. Just with the idea that everybody is sequestered right now or quarantined, and paranormal activity could be happening out there, and there's nobody to witness it. I have a really good friend who he's a filmmaker, and he works half of the year in Singapore, half the year in Los Angeles. And he was making this. Oh God, I think it was Dolph Lundgren was in it. It was a post-apocalyptic. I think it was a robot apocalypse type movie.
And, oh my God, I think I saw that.
And they found the most perfect location in Singapore, which was this huge mall that never got finished. Like, they went bankrupt before anybody ever moved in. So now it's just like the jungle is overtaking it. And this is perfect for a location. And he could not get film crew in there. It's like, again, it was all belief that the place was haunted. And nobody would go into a room unless we went in a group, that kind of a thing. And he, being with this American sensibility, thought, this is nuts. Nobody's ever lived here. Nobody's ever died here. Nobody's ever stepped foot in this place. There can't be a ghost. And the belief out there was that ghosts like to have their peace and quiet and try to stay away from people. So an abandoned mall that has never been moved into is the perfect place for ghosts to hang out. So with that idea, this could be just a full worldwide playground for ghosts if they don't like to be around us mortals.
They could be walking the streets right now.
Exactly, just finally skipping down the street carefree. I don't have to be chased around by some ghost hunting bros.
Right. All right, so I am ready to do some recording on my end. And if anybody has any comments, you can feel free to put them in. Any questions or something like that, you can feel free to put them in the comments and reactions. And we will answer your questions if you have any. Otherwise, we're just going to tell some stories right now. This is going to be episode 290 of the See You on the Other Side podcast. So I have a hard time believing that we're already at 290 when we started this 5.5 years ago. So
Has it been that long?
yeah, and
Wow.
right, and I've actually I have grown gray in my beard like since this started. So you can tell that podcasting is really good as I am mainlining whiskey.
You have that like lightning streak in the back of your head. So, you know that one white streak that shows true terror.
Well, not all ghost stories have to be terrifying, though. Like, we're used to these ideas that ghost stories are always going to be scary, right? But some of them can be nice. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Do you want to do a 1, 2, 3?
We weren't recording yet. So
Okay.
Can we do a restart on that?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Allison.
Just using call recorder,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm already recording.
Okay. No worries.
Check 1, 2. Check. We get our level set. A slightly different process from what we're used to here. So.
Okay. But, you know, I got to say, though, that I have been trying to work on more ghost stories and research and stuff like that. So all this time inside has been good about getting it and looking up and trying to find anything haunted. Allison, have you been finding anything haunted?
Yes, that's all I've been doing is like reading and writing about ghosts. That's all I've been doing for weeks anyway. But well, I actually teach in China, so I teach over the internet. So everybody should know that although the coronavirus thing had happened in China,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I still have, I'm still booked up every week for classes.
Oh, wow.
So just
That's
so you know,
great.
it's not like the Twilight Zone. You know, it's not like
It's not like all the Chinese have disappeared.
yeah. I mean, they're still there, and the kids are still learning English, and we're still having fun every day. So it's all good. And you know, this is the new normal for us, but that's okay. I mean, there's a lot of good things about it, and not as many bad things as you might believe. It's just we're taking precautions right now. That's all. But basically, I think it's great because my dream is to be under house arrest and just to bring in loads of like takeout and
You don't need a global pandemic for that.
Or well, I know, but it's like an extra excuse. You know, I could work out, but why? It's a pandemic. I'm just gonna eat and watch Netflix and research ghost stories, of course. And so that's what I've been doing, just hours and hours on end, because the internet still works. So things are not as bad as they seem. And in fact, they've been great for me. So hopefully they're great for you as well.
Well, that's all that matters. Yeah.
Right. All right. So as soon as as everybody's got the recorder on, we should start recording episode 290 of See You on the Other Side podcast. And so just let me know, all hands, when we're ready, and then we can do the 1, 2, 3. Now, you guys are behind the scenes now, the people at home, and you can see how the magic works. You know.
Are you guys able to hear? Are you able to hear us both?
Bones.
Okay.
You're seeing the lovely bones now, people.
Yeah, I can hear you both.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. So we're all going to try to clap on 3. And let's see how we do it. Okay. 1,
1,
2, 3. Episode 290 of the See You on the Other Side podcast. Welcome to the See You on the Other Side lockdown. But I tell you, it doesn't have to be a negative thing. And we're still having fun no matter what. And we're going to try to lift everyone's spirits today by telling the happiest ghost stories we know. And so today, of course, joined by Wendy from the See You on the Side podcast, as well as Scott Marcus from whatsyourghoststory.com. and my sister, unfortunately, Allison Jornlin.
Hey,
And so, well,
She's quarantined up at the Ice Planet Hoth, it looks like.
yes,
that's right.
it's
And
true.
we're doing great over here. We're just ripping open animals and sleeping inside of them, just like normal.
Yeah,
Nice and cozy.
right.
Yes, nice and moist.
The thing is, when you guys were looking for happy ghost stories, to talk about today, did you find it difficult at all to find like ghost stories that were fun or happy or anything like that? Does it seem like most people, the stories they tell about ghosts are scary, or did you say there's plenty of happiness to go around?
Well, I wanted to say that I consider all ghost stories to be happy, and here's the reason why. So, amidst all the foibles and the tragedy and the travesty, if life goes on in some way, that's happy, right?
Mm-hmm.
If people escape this mortal coil and go on to an afterlife, that's happy. I mean,
Unless
even
the afterlife is not such a nice place.
well, okay. It might not all be like unicorns and sunbeams and rainbows, but it's life, and where there's life, there's hope. So if there's an afterlife, I'm all good. Even if terrible things happen to you in life, if there's a continuance, and if you learn from something from it, I think it's a positive.
Oh, but that's a really nice way to look at it, Allison. Different religions too seem to have like some afterlives. Of course, heaven's the big one. That obviously everybody wants to go to heaven because it's an eternity in paradise. But then other afterlives, like the Greek Hades, always seem like a downer. You kind of go there, everything's gray.
But they have the Elysian Fields, right?
Right, for the heroes. So it would give some, people a reason who wanted to die in battle or whatever, get to go to the Elysian Fields. But Scott and Wendy, when you guys were looking for ghost stories, did you find it easy to find happy ones?
I do think that's pretty easy. I've got the LA Hauntings ghost tour, the Hollywood American Ghost Walks, and I feel like the vast majority of the locations, especially along Hollywood Boulevard, are really positive stories because they involve people that loved a place in life and they want to come back to it and keep enjoying that place. We'll get into detail, of course, but like Valentino alone, he has seen it like a dozen places in LA, another 6 in New York, and another 1 or 2 in Italy. And his dog haunts the Calabasas Pet Cemetery. And so this is a guy that died young. So yes, we kick it off with some sadness, but we got to put some eggs.
Right.
But he was a partier. He loved to go out and socialize, and he's been able to continue to do so after death. So I think that's super positive.
And you're talking about the actor Rudolph Valentino, and people might recognize him from what blockbuster mega hits?
Oh, The Sheik. Everybody. The Sheik. Was it Dance of the Seventh Veil? Something like that. I can't name more than. Oh, there's the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse.
Everybody's heartthrob, Rudolph Valentino. I mean, still even the Bangles were singing about him in the 80s.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he was, and his most iconic character was the Sheik, and he was the biggest, one of the first male sex symbols, and that is why we have Sheik condoms, because it's named after this romantic character from the 1920s, the silent era.
Yeah, we can thank him for those ones that break all the time.
Oh, come on.
Allison's like, oh, come on, they always work for her.
Go a different way with that.
Okay, fair enough. Wendy, did you find it hard to find some happy ghost stories, or did they just pop off the page for you?
Well, I found that it was actually easy to find like fiction ghost stories for children that were happy.
Okay.
But not so easy to find actual experiences people had with ghosts that were like, made you feel good.
Okay.
So maybe it's just more fun. Maybe people prefer like the stories that are spooky, or I don't know. But just in my searches of the internet. So
Sure.
That doesn't mean there aren't plenty of other positive experience things. And I've certainly met people at conferences or, the places on my ghost tour and things like that where people tell me they think a loved one that's passed has visited them, and they've experienced hearing or seeing things, and those are always kind of touching and positive.
All right.
But in my searches, it's been mostly like children's stories.
Okay, right. Not
and fictional stories that are not necessarily true.
well. Let me kick off the story. Today with a happy story of a first-hand account that I got when I was visiting Puerto Rico in December of 2018. And the only tip that I got about this particular location, which is the Gallery Inn, which is on Calle Nazgare, and it's right on it's right on the ocean. It's overlooking the Atlantic Ocean, overlooking this big field over the ocean. It's really a beautiful place. It's in Old San Juan, and it kind of looks nondescript on the outside. And I saw somebody like in a San Juan, Puerto Rico employment forum post something that like the dishwasher said it's totally haunted. Like, so that was all I'd gotten about that particular location, and so I wanted to go in there and see if they did have any ghost stories. And so immediately you walk in, and what was funny about it is that I thought it was a statue of a parrot. It's this gigantic, I mean, the thing must have been 2 feet high. Like I thought it was just this parrot on this tree, like inside this veranda. And I'm like, oh, that's a pretty cool statue of a parrot. And then it's like, hello. And it started talking to me. And I'm like, all right then. So it was a real parrot. So just to go over, it originally was like 6 intertwined townhouses that were Spanish military residences built in the 1700s. And so they eventually just became like regular houses. But an artist, Jan D'Esposo, bought the place in the 1960s. Now, she was born in Connecticut, but she spent time in Puerto Rico as a young girl with her uncle, who used to work for their governor, Luis Munoz Marin. I always say it wrong. But they named the airport after this guy, so he's like Puerto Rico's most famous governor. And she returns there in the 1960s with her husband, Manuco, and they work for a long time to renovate the place. They turn it into a hotel that has art in every room. And so that's why that's why they call it the Gallery Inn, because there's art, like unique, sculptures and paintings and stuff like that in every single room of the place. And
So no Velvet Elvises.
no, definitely that is not a place for Velvet Elvises. That is for sure.
Darn. Okay, I would love a room with a Velvet Elvis, just to go on the record.
Well, maybe you can request it. You can, and they can do that for you in advance. Anyway, and then the hotel bar is called the Cannon Club. And it really is like a quirky, one-of-a-kind place. And the ocean view is spectacular, and it's pretty sweet. And so even though the building is 3 centuries old, most of the ghostly activity isn't from the Spanish soldiers, but from Manuco, the deceased husband of the owner of the inn, Jan D'Esposo. She's still alive. He never left the building because his ashes are still in his old office. They're in like an urn, I think. They're not just ashes out everywhere. But when we talked to the bartenders at the Cannon Club, they mentioned that they've seen him in his former office sitting in his chair. And they thought it was weird that, they're like, is somebody in there? And then they walk in and there's nobody in the office. So they see him from outside the office sitting there, and then they walk in, he's not there. And there's a piano in the bar in the Cannon Club, and sometimes the people hear music when there's nobody playing the keys, and they think like, oh, that like they're in the other room. They're like, oh, you hear the music? Somebody must be playing the piano. And they go in there, and it's nobody playing the piano. But they say the usual footsteps, shadows, and the feeling of not being alone come along with the job description at the Gallery Inn, but nobody feels threatened or scared because Manuco was a popular and friendly guy when he was alive, and they think that he's just checking in on the building that he worked hard on, and he shared it with the love of his life for 50 years that they had worked there. And I thought that was a really happy ghost story, and I was excited walking in, because you never know when you talk to people that work at a place, like what they're going to say when you say like, hey, is this place haunted? Or like, I heard there's ghosts here. And the 2 girls working at the bar, that night were completely, they were like super excited to tell the stories. They're like, oh yeah, someone's going to believe us finally. And they talked about seeing Minuko through the place and how they always thought he was a nice guy when he was alive, and he was always friendly and a beloved character. And so they enjoyed seeing him after he was gone. And even his wife had seen his spirit in place a lot. And they said that she felt comfortable with him there, that he was just coming in for a visit and it wasn't anything scary at all. So I thought that ended up.
Great. And
Go ahead.
that is a really positive story that he's lingering in the place that he so loved in life. So it makes sense. And now that you talk about that, Mike, I mean, I have a lot of stories in Milwaukee that are like that. Like, I'm thinking about the Milwaukee Public Museum, for instance, and they are haunted and have been for the last 50 years by their former director, who was the director of the Milwaukee Public Museum from 1959 to 1969. And he was a very, exciting, interesting, idiosyncratic kind of character, and he's still experienced throughout the building. And not because of, some terrible thing that occurred there. I mean, nothing terrible happened there. But after his death, he just came back to this place that he loved in life, and he was quite a prankster in life, and he's still a prankster today. So, I love stories like that where people seem to live on and continue to express their personality.
Sure. No, I think it's great, and I thought it was really cute that the girls were excited that we wanted to talk about it. They were probably also really excited because I had bought a bought a whole bottle of wine, and so they're like, all right, these guys are gonna be here for a while drinking.
So we'll fill his head with a lot of stories.
Yes, right, but it worked, and now I've got a story that we can tell people on the tour in Puerto Rico. All right. Well, who wants to tell a story next? Scott, you had teased us earlier with stories about Rudolph Valentino, and I think we want to hear more about the famous Lover.
Oh, well, let's see. I mean, I guess one of the more, again, popular and famous ones involves the Knickerbocker Hotel, which is on Ivar, just less than a block north of Hollywood Boulevard. And this place has its incredible history. Honestly, there's a lot of darkness and sadness there as well. But gosh, where do you even start with this place? One of the places that makes this an important location, just in the history of all things paranormal, is that this is where Bess Houdini held her rooftop seance on the 10th anniversary of Harry Houdini's death, trying to make contact. So that will always be just an important part of spiritualism here, history. But yes, Valentino would be seen in the lounge of this hotel, and it was said, much like Resurrection Mary in the south side of Chicago, that you could dance with him all night long, maybe not even realizing that you were dancing with this famous specter. And the funny thing is that in life, as the story goes, he would ride his horse down from, because would eventually just slump his body over his horse, and the horse, being the best designated driver in the world, would walk home as he's passed out on his back. Um, so an interesting thing though is that Valentino, he passed away early from some internal stomach complications that didn't. He went into surgery and didn't come out of surgery. Um, he died before the Knickerbocker was built. So there's no way that he could have actually been dancing here in life. So we wonder: is the story one? Is the story
Oh, nice. Well, and if it's the greatest restaurant in the world, obviously he wants to give it a nibble. Okay. We had a couple of people comments from the Peanut Gallery. Bart says we only hear the bad ghost stories, and it's nice to hear some positive ones. Hi, Bart. How you doing? Bart is a proud See You on the Other Side podcast Patreon member. So shout out to B Art and rock on, my man. And Stephanie says, awesome. It's ghost story time. How you doing, Stephanie? She used to be the Milwaukee Ghost Tour guide. And so, yes, so it's nice to have a visit. That'd be great. And she is awesome. So, all right. And Wendy, you have to tell a happy ghost story next? Yeah, happy-ish. Doesn't have to be perfect. Yes. Unless they're playing the themes, unless they're playing the theme song to Westworld, which is super depressing. So if they play that from the Beyond the Grave, you don't want to hang out with them. And so, but you're. So where are you going to haunt, Wendy, and play? You're going to haunt somewhere and play a drum set? All right. Right. All right. Mm-hmm.
Woman who was killed near that area, that was a regular at the bus stop, and just kind of a friendly presence, just continuing doing her daily thing. And so people see that specter from time to time. So, but Waukesha has so much. We can get into more of that, the fun part of Waukesha and the magical healing waters of Waukesha that bring even more mystery. But that was just one little friendly-ish ghost that I like to talk about.
Do we want to take a time out to address Bart?
Oh, yeah. No, I saw that. You should be able to hear it now. I actually hit the mute on the Skype sound levels when I was manipulating all of the things here. So everybody's back now.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay. and I'm gonna turn that sound levels thing off so I can't touch it again. So I'm gonna turn
Keep
that
your
screen
hands off that.
Well, this is the first time that we've had like so many people on at once, and also trying to do like little graphics and things like. There's a soundboard too that can like make the sound of applause. I don't know if we want to do that.
Oh yes, like our in-studio audience.
Yeah.
That's great. Laughter and applause. Yay! Allison's the greatest. That's what I want to hear.
Oh, you guys are over Skype, so you can't hear it. There's also the DJ air horn. So this one's to everybody out there.
No.
This one's for you guys. What up? Yeah. All right. Enough of that tomfoolishness. Allison, you had a pretty happy story from the Miller Caves in Milwaukee, didn't you? And I remember,
Yes.
I remember when you got this story. Wasn't that one of the days of the Chicago Paranormal Convention in like 2015? Like you had gone to the Miller Caves in the morning, and then you'd driven to.
Oh yes. I had that story for a long time though, but in 2015, the people at Miller embraced the history and did a little video and even did a paranormal investigation that night of the Miller Inn and the Miller Caves, which is in downtown Milwaukee, and it's a place where people regularly tour. And there are these caves, these limestone caves, in the complex, which used to be used from about the mid 1800s to 1906 to house beer and keep it cold when they didn't have modern refrigeration.
Beer.
So these huge limestone caves were used for refrigeration. And back in 1955, one of our former big newspapers here, the Milwaukee Sentinel, had a special edition just for Miller, just for the 100th anniversary of Miller Brewing in Milwaukee. So in 1955, they have this special issue, and it had all these stories about Miller and Miller history. And one of the stories was a famous ghost story that took place. I didn't know at that time when I just found the newspaper article that it was still taking place. But so I found this article and I thought, wow, this is such a lovely bit of folklore, and it's so, it's a love story. And so it was just irresistible to blog about for Valentine's Day on my Milwaukee Ghost blog one year, back in the 2000 aughts sometime. I blogged about it. And the story, here's how it goes. So there was a young brewery worker working at Miller, and he had this paramour, this girlfriend. And during one hot summer...
Listen to you, Paramore. What are you writing a romance novel
right?
here?
Yeah. Well,
Her heaving breast.
So I got to bring out the vocab, right?
Okay.
So anyway, this brewery worker has this lover who is this beautiful young girl, and every Saturday night during one hot summer, they have a tryst where they will meet in front of the Miller Caves. And they will use the Miller Caves as their love palace. So
Whoa.
Yeah.
I'm looking
Getting
amidst
down
the
to the F
cast.
cave.
Their affections bloomed and sparked in the lantern lights. And so they were just having a great time among these huge casks of beer. And, maybe some of the cask leaks. I don't know. There could be a little bit of a leak there, just to keep everybody lubricated. I'm not sure. But anyway, they had a great time in the cool air of the caves. And so they used this as their little love palace for the summer. But then one Saturday night, the young girl is waiting patiently outside the cave, and her lover doesn't meet her. And she's waiting for hours and hours, and she returns home only to find that he has been in a terrible accident. She finds out that he was working one day in one of the caves, and he tripped and fell on one of the staircases and hit his head. And so she ran to his bedside, and he would never regain consciousness. So it doesn't start out happy, but where there's a ghost story, there has to be some death. So then he dies, and she's at his bedside, and the old timers would tell that she actually would die soon after as well. That winter, she passed due to a broken heart.
Oh,
that is sad.
Yeah.
They would tell about this terrible accident that occurred at the brewery in the Miller Caves. And then they said, soon after those deaths, they would see that subsequent fall and summer, they saw this woman in white, a luminous figure. They would glimpse her sometimes standing in front of the Miller Cave entrance on Saturday nights. And
are you sure they didn't just see the lady from the Miller High Life sign, like who was sitting on the moon
right?
or
Sitting
whatever?
on the moon.
Yes, but ghostly and in white. So anyway, this was the story. And I was like, oh, that's so charming that, there's still this woman waiting for her lost love. And it's pretty sad, right? But then what was happy to me is, well, first of all, I heard from the security guards, of course, after I blogged. They were like, well, stuff is still going on. That's a cool story and everything. But, oftentimes at night when we are doing our rounds, we will see figures. And one guard told me about, she saw a woman on her rounds, and she would hear that woman like speaking sometimes loudly into her ears. And there were other security guards who actually chased a male figure down the hallway one night. They thought, somebody had broken in. So what they tried to do is head him off at the pass. So one security guard was chasing this so-called intruder, through the hall and towards a door. And then on the other end of the door was another security guard waiting, and that area is all fenced in as well. So they thought, well, we've got this guy cornered. But so the security guard that was chasing this guy saw the door open, and the security guard on the other side saw the door open, and then there was no one.
Bum, bum, bum.
So, I mean, that was pretty fun. But my favorite is that other employees who help run the tour had told stories that after the brewery tour, they are, just making sure that, all the tour guests get to the Miller Inn to have their complimentary beverages and leave the cave area successfully. And at one point, one witness actually, she was an employee there, and she quit her job after this because she spotted a couple in the corner macking on each other. And she was like, oh, hey, guys, the tour's over, this way to the inn to have some free brewskis. And then they disappeared in front of her eyes.
Awesome.
So it's possible. And there are enough reports
they have
now
to be
that
dead if they're from Milwaukee and they're passing up free beer in order to disappear. Like, that they're obviously dead.
they're obviously dead. But the cool thing is that it seems these stories seem to point to the possibility that these two ill-fated lovers have found each other again in the afterlife and still frolic through the Miller Caves and do what they will. So I think that's really a pleasant story.
Some 40 and fornication.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure about that, but they sure do like to kiss in the corner. So I I think that's kind of sweet. And it's interesting to me because at first, like sometimes when I find stories, I can watch myself go through different reactions to the stories. Like initially when I found it, I was like, oh, this is some cool like folklore. And it's great that Milwaukee has this type of folklore, just like other cities. It's kind of legendary, kind of sweet and sappy.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, wait a second. There's something being experienced. And I thought, well, maybe it's residual because of all the limestone and the stone tape theory. And perhaps like some of what happened there is encoded in the rock.
Their love was so intense.
Right. That's the stone tape theory. That it's just replaying like a record. But then
well,
when
that's
you
not
hear...
like a record. That's like a porno.
But when you hear about the security guards and their interactions, and it seems like communication attempts on the parts of the spirits there, then it doesn't seem residual at all. It seems like an intelligent haunting. So my mind has changed about what's going on there, and it seems to be maybe two intelligent spirits again lingering in a place that they loved in life.
All right, that is a happy
That's
story. Allison.
Sweet.
Together, yeah.
Yeah, that's not.
Had to go through the sad to get there, though.
Yeah,
But-
yeah.
Yeah, like somebody had to die, obviously.
If you're going through hell, keep going.
That's right.
Right.
And maybe
There you
get
go.
heaven on the other side. I've got a pretty happy story from Madison, and this one I think is interesting, specifically because it's from my high school social studies teacher.
Ooh.
And it's funny because I was looking for some different ghost stories of North Hall of the University of Wisconsin. So I was, and I'd gotten a couple ghost stories about North Hall from like the 1800s. And I'll tell that in a second. But then I was looking through like the University of Wisconsin magazine for like the alumni magazine. And they have like readers could send in their own ghost stories. And so one of the ghost stories is from a security guard. And as I'm going down, it says like Tom Sabatke. And I'm like, whoa, Sabatke's not a very common name. And that's the name of my high school's teacher. And so I looked it up, and absolutely, it was from him. And so I just thought it was an interesting thing because he never sounded like he was interested in ghost stories when we were probably in American history class, because it probably just didn't come up. But the fact that he had his own ghost story and that he got it into the alumni magazine, I thought that was a lot of fun. So let me give you a little background on North Hall. It was the first building at the University of Wisconsin, and it opened up in 1851. The famous naturalist John Muir, the founder of the Sierra Club, lived there in 1860 while he worked his way through college as a young man. He even describes his first botany lesson under a tree outside this hall as the inspiration for what set him, quote, flying to the woods and meadows in wild enthusiasm, unquote. In 1880, North Hall was a men's dorm, and strange figures were said to have been roaming the halls for years by that point. In the student newspaper that year, it mentions a student waking up in the middle of the night in his second-floor room. As he entered the hallway, he saw what was described as an apparition in white. He ran back to his room to grab his roommate, but when they went to investigate, there was nothing there. Later, when they fell back asleep, they both woke up when they said it entered their room for a moment and left. And after that, the ghost was seen in different buildings on campus over the next few nights, skipping through the halls and vanishing, and wearing garments of unearthly whiteness. I thought that I was unearthly white, right? But I guess not as much as this guy. And so after that, John Bascom, and the hill that actually North Hall is on is called Bascom Hill. This is before it was called Bascom Hill. He hadn't had anything named after him yet. But John Bascom was the university president, and he decided to get together some faculty and investigate themselves. So the president of the university did a ghost hunt in 1880.
That's cool.
In 1880. But a little after, a student named Samuel Whitney Trousdale had confessed that he was the spirit dressing in a bedsheet and romping through the halls.
Oh, no.
In addition to being excellent with bleaching his whites, Trousdale would later go on to become one of the most influential Methodist ministers in Wisconsin. But when you look him up, You have to go to the Wisconsin State Journal in 1888, and he talks about his, quote, ghostly confession, unquote. So when we get to my teacher, we'll go back to March 1983. And so we're getting the Wayback Machine. March 1983. Allison, you were 13 at the time, so you probably had. Do you have a jean jacket yet?
I don't know. I don't remember a lot about that time.
Did you have a perm yet?
I'm sure I had a perm.
Sure,
I'm sure I loved Michael Jackson.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and Burt Reynolds. Yeah, sure.
And Burt Reynolds. She was a big Burt
Not
fan.
Burt Reynolds. I never liked Burt Reynolds.
March 1983. Now, the security officer is making his rounds at around 3 a.m., obviously the devil's hour, and he sees a heavy fire door open by itself when there's no one there. As he continues down the hallway, he feels like someone's traveling with him. The air's moving, the temperature drops, and he said he used to work at Wendy's, and not our Wendy's, but Wendy's with the hamburgers or whatever. And he said that he said the temperature drop was like being at the meat locker at Wendy's.
Wow.
And so, right, so that's a serious temperature drop.
Yeah.
At first he's afraid to tell his coworkers about the experience. But when he finally actually tells somebody from the maintenance crew, and he kind of coaches it as, have you guys ever seen anything, weird around here? He said they were all like, oh yeah, so you've seen the ghost now.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
They told him it was a political science professor who died late one Saturday night of a heart attack in 1956. He worked in room 412, and sometimes he's seen following the workers down the staircase if they leave his office door open. After they're done cleaning or whatever, they've seen him come down the staircase and have to go back up and close the door. Or they saw they see him walking through the hall past the custodians mopping the floor. So the next night, my teacher, this is a security guard in 1983 when Allison had a perm, was working in North Hall again, and he approaches room 412 and he says, "It's just security, professor. All's well. Good night." And he said he never had an experience that was scary again.
That's awesome.
What's funny is that he in the letter to On Wisconsin Magazine, he even writes in, he goes, "I would send an affidavit to this story's veracity."
Wow.
So right now you can't even get people to attach their name to something when they see a weird light in the sky. He's like, "I will sign an affidavit to its veracity." I mean, probably because he's not worried about losing his job, because I think he's retired. I think he's retired now. But
that's when the good stuff comes out, though.
That's true.
Right. You got to talk to your elders.
People retire. There's nothing to lose, so.
Your elders all have the great stories, and they remember history. So talk to your elders. You have a lot of opportunities to do that now.
Mm-hmm. I just thought it was interesting. I just thought it was funny that looking through, I'm like, oh my God, that's my teacher. And then the funny thing is, I think I Facebook messaged him or something, and I saw him again that he was having some kind of my old social study teacher, he was the head of the teachers union in Mukwonago where we grew up or whatever. And so he was a little to the left of Chairman Mao. And I saw him Facebook arguing with one of our past guests, Scotty Roberts, over some political thing. And it was just it was a really fun, Scotty's such a nice guy. They're both really nice guys, but it was just a funny thing that they knew each other. They were actually having a very civil discussion on Facebook, which I was surprised at. But the fact that my old teacher had a ghost story and knows a guy who we only know through ghost stories and paranormal stuff made me feel that it's a small world after all.
It's a small world after all.
Yes.
And you were criticizing Baby Shark earlier.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I'm going to torture you people. Okay, so I have to interject here, though. I have to tell a story about John Muir that's supernatural and positive. It has a very happy ending.
Ooh,
so you were talking
right.
about John Muir, who's a very famous conservationist, and he originally came from Scotland, but he grew up.
I'm here to conserve some birds.
He grew up in Wisconsin and became kind of this cool, like weird inventor guy. Like he reminds me of Wallace from Wallace and Gromit. Like some of his inventions. Like
All right.
he had an invention that would wake him up in the morning by like catapulting him out of bed. That's actually an invention
I want that.
is described through animation in one of the Wallace and Gromit cartoons. So that's when I picture John Muir, I picture Wallace. Anyway, so he would live in Wisconsin for a while and go to the University of at Madison. But then he left, of course, for the Sierras. And he is quite famous for getting Teddy Roosevelt to establish the national parks by getting him to go hiking and camping with him.
They had to have an arm wrestle off, didn't they? Can't you just imagine like Teddy Roosevelt's like, sure, I'll do it, but you got to beat me in a set of fisticuffs.
That's right. But anyway, John Muir was a big Scottish guy, so he was ready to put up the dukes.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You'd like a Glasgow kiss, would you, Teddy?
Yes. So they understood each other, kind of like Klingons. But anyway, so he was in his first summer in the Sierras, just walking amongst the trees one day, and he got this message in his brain. Just out of nowhere, like something that had never happened to him before, that he got this message in his mind that his old professor was down in the valley and in distress. So he followed that crazy notion and just looked all around the valley, which is, a vast area, and then finds his professor, who was quite elderly at that point, and decided to take a walk through the valley, but then, got lost and a little bit injured and dehydrated.
Aww.
And wandering around aimlessly. And so he found his old professor from UW-Madison, and retrieved him and took him to safety. So, I mean, this was really bizarre to think that John Muir is just walking around among the Sierras and gets this psychic message
Yeah.
in his
I
head.
love that. Love it.
And then he went out there and saved his professor's life.
Cool.
This is actually in John Muir wrote about it in his biography. So it is a true story and a very weird one that he didn't know how to explain himself.
I love it, and that'd be great. We make sure we tell Lisa that one, so when she does the UW campus tour, she can also tie that into John Muir, who had a vision of the the majesty of nature on Bascom Hill when he was sitting outside North Hall. Eventually, had a real vision that saved his professor's life from the University of Wisconsin.
Right, I'll send her that today after we get done.
The thing is that people don't understand about the University of Wisconsin is that all alumni are psychic.
Oh, that's true, Mike.
Yeah, so Wendy and I can read your mind.
Uh-oh. I better stop thinking about that.
I was going to say, Wendy, I can read your mind. So,
oh my gosh.
We're no longer.
Whoa,
we are
Allison,
no longer.
that's intense.
We are no longer friends. Okay.
Well, I just the idea of helpful spirits. A short one. Joyce Heisler is somebody I know. She was the lead actress in Just One of the Guys, that like 1980s kind of rom-com teen comedy. And
I remember Just One of the Guys.
Yeah, Just One of the Guys. She was one of the guys. The kind of sort of guy. And she grew up in the New England area in this old house. And one day she was on the second floor, just on her own, and she heard a knock at the door. And it took her a while to realize that, oh gosh, I'm the only one home. I got to go answer that. So she goes running on this hardwood floor and slips on the top step. And she just banana peels as she's running down the stairs. Oh. And she said she finds herself literally upside down, falling,
nightmare,
assumingly about to break her neck. And she feels two hands grab her by the shoulders, two phantom hands grab her by the shoulders, pick her up, and set her back down on her feet at the base of the staircase. She said a ghost saved her life.
Wow,
All
that's a bloody
right.
miracle.
There are
That's
good
awesome.
spirits out there. We can say guardian angel, ghost, whatever you want to say. It's something paranormal saved her life.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is
That's
pretty
amazing.
good.
And I
Could
mean,
we all be
that's
so lucky?
the most comforting idea of all, I think, is that, you know, just like in the spiritualist church, hey, and guys, the spiritualist church still exists. You know, people just think of, you know, spiritualism in the, you know, 19th century, but spiritualist churches are still there today. And, you know, they believe in lots of the standard Christian dogma, but they also believe that, you know, these spirits of those who have gone before are still with us. And many other cultures, I was just in Hawaii, many other cultures share that belief that the spirits of our ancestors are still there protecting us and still, you know, watching you in the shower, unfortunately, but also there to save your life if you need it.
Sorry, Grandma.
That's why you got to put on a show, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
We got to see something interesting. Come on. It's
You know-
eternity, people.
I wanted to bring this up when Wendy was talking about haunted instruments, and this isn't necessarily a ghost story, but this is more of just something that I thought was neat. Was that at NAMM in 2016? NAMM is the National Association of Music Merchants, and they have a big convention in Anaheim every January, and that's where they show off like the newest kind of music technology. In 2016, I went there, and it had like a modern update of a player piano. And it doesn't sound like a player piano like in the Old West movies. Like it was this beautiful sound, and the keys were moving and everything. And I even blogged about it on the See on the Other Side blog, because I thought it was so interesting that what they did was there's a Canadian jazz pianist by the name of Oscar Peterson, and that player piano recreates 12 of his performances exactly like he was playing it in front of you. There's only a few of the instruments in the world that they built to do that. And so, like, they recreated his performance perfectly. They recorded him, doing a piece, and like how hard he pressed the keys. You know, every single thing was captured perfectly by the piano, and then it can play it right back for you exactly like how he did. So when we talk about the stone tape theory, recording something that, you know, the walls can record things like a vinyl record. You know, they've done that now in real life. So you're listening
With computers.
right. So when you're
cool.
when you're listening to that piano, you are listening to the ghost, a digital ghost of Oscar Peterson playing you one of his final performances. So just you made me think about that when you were talking about it, because I was like, oh yeah, like the phantom drum solos or whatever, like we're going to have those. You know, I think of all of the, think about all the, if Neil Peart ever played a V drum set, like they can go back and like the MIDI recording, it's a perfect recording that they can recreate on any other instrument then. And so that's something cool.
I always think the piano ghost stories are interesting too, because there's so many different ways of the piano like manifesting the sound. Like
right.
In some stories, people hear a full song being played, like up in Pembine where we were at the Four Seasons, up in Pembine in northern Wisconsin, actually almost northern Michigan. There's a place that has a story about a phantom piano music being heard, and there is a piano, but what they hear is like, they hear music from the next room or in that room, but it's not, the keys aren't moving. So it's just the sound that's being like replayed somehow. And then in other cases, you'll hear of ghost investigations where they'll actually like see the key moving or something. And then in other cases, they'll hear the strings being hit inside the piano, but the keys aren't moving. So it's just interesting how spirits find a different way to
communicate,
to share that sound. Yes.
Well, speaking of a ghost investigation, Bart just said, he's like, automations and automatons are awesome. He's like the ones at Wisconsin's own House on the Rock. Now, I think
Ooh,
House on the Rock is a
yes.
place where we should do a ghost investigation sometime.
That would be cool.
Yes.
You know,
We'll get Neil Gaiman to join us, and it'll be awesome.
right. All right. Who's got another happy ghost story for us?
Here, I'll do one more. This is
do.
from my book, so it's a Chicago area one. I don't know if anybody's ever been to Cavalry Cemetery in Evanston, but it is just one of the most beautiful cemeteries and I don't know that I've ever been to. Shout out to Charles Comiskey, who founded the White Sox. He's buried there. But it is just a very grand. It's kind of like a Graceland Cemetery or a Rose Hill Cemetery, if you know the Chicago area, where it feels more like a museum of amazing history and just funerary art. But one person that is apparently resting there is someone that is not buried there. How? You may ask.
Yes.
How? Do
How?
tell.
We're all asking.
In the area WW2, the Navy used Lake Michigan a lot for all sorts of different training exercises, since it is such a huge, vast body of water. Including, they would have these kind of makeshift, if you will, aircraft carriers out there to train pilots how to land and take off on that small of a runway. And I was able to verify that indeed this is something that took place out there at that time. And of course, you're training. Not everybody is going to stick to the landing. And unfortunately, there were casualties. People that pilots that are in their planes interred in Lake Michigan. So for a while, after apparently one of these people passed away this way, people would see a spectral form of someone struggling out in the water, like they're drowning, they're trying to get help, and they would sink down, wouldn't see him, and then eventually he would reemerge, crawling up this rocky shoreline of Lake Michigan, and then he would walk up and across Sheridan Road, which is a 4-lane street, fairly busy street, and cars would stop or swerve to get out of the way, and then he would get to the gates of Cavalry Cemetery, and this was usually in sunset or later. So the gates would be closed, and he would just pace back and forth until eventually fading away. Well, as the story goes, this was a very regular occurrence in this area for a while after this person passed away, until one night the groundskeeper forgot to lock up, and he left the gates open. And the aviator, or Seaweed Charlie, as some people have nicknamed him, had never been seen since that time. Yeah. So he's never been seen since that time that the gates were accidentally left open.
Oh, no.
So it's like he was able to finally go into the cemetery and find his own peace.
Aww.
How many times though did he have to cross the road? So like, was it like Frogger? You know, imagine like crossing a 4-lane highway. Like every time he got hit, the ghost got hit, he had to go back to the sea and start again.
Oh, it is eternity, Mike. So.
Yeah, I mean,
he's got nothing
Right.
time.
What's the rush?
No, that's like Tantalus, though. Oh no, that's like who's the guy that had to roll the boulder? Sisyphus and the rock to roll it up the hill.
Well, he rolled it all the way up.
Yeah, he made it to the end. That is a happy ending because he finally, his torment or whatever of being stuck in the water, he finally got out and made it into his eternal grave.
And, just from a theoretical standpoint, let's say, because, this could be folklore. Allegedly, there are scores of witnesses that have seen this through the years, again, a while ago. But, you think of ghosts like, well, they can walk through walls and they're not bound by these physical limitations. But first off, we don't know the rules. We just think we're guessing here.
Right.
But also maybe there is something special about this consecrated ground, and if the gates are closed, well, that's a spiritual sign to just stay out for right now. But fortunately, he was able to get in.
Aw.
Good for him.
That's nice.
Now, from the peanut gallery, Bart also mentioned the Eastland disaster.
Yeah.
And he's like the Eastland that lost 844 passengers.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Yeah, and I responded at least, because some estimates have 888 or more. We don't really know because this was taking place in the 19 teens. I'm a little bit fuzzy at the moment, but it was supposed to be a cruise ship that would take all of these company people and their families on this trip to Michigan City, Indiana, and it was a very long, narrow steamer. And as people were getting on, you're releasing ballast to try to keep the boat balanced. And eventually, and we don't really know what it is, there's different theories, but for some reason, something happened on one side of the ship that got everybody's attention. So they all rushed over after a lot of ballast has been released. So the ship just rolled over right there while it was moored in the Chicago River, and not that much water. But a lot of people were below deck. And so, I mean, people that were on the surface, they maybe didn't know how to swim, and people passed away there. But untold hundreds of people were below deck, and then the ship filled with water, and they could not get out. So yes, we have an unbelievable amount of loss of life in that one space, and it's really amazing because today people observe sometimes screams or, again, like residual hauntings of people asking for help from the water. One thing that I find fascinating is Harpo Studios. A lot of places were set up as makeshift morgues, and Oprah's Harpo Studios was one such place. And
Oprah
Before it was Harpo.
Oprah was the first one who jumped in to save lives. Like, let's just be clear.
What
Oprah's
can
like,
she do?
she's like, you don't drown it. You don't drown it. You don't drown
A
it.
life preserver for you. A life preserver for you.
You get a life jacket. You get a life jacket.
But she apparently, and I still need to find this, but she apparently did a Halloween special that talked about ghost stories, and they did an in-depth look at the hauntings there at Harpo, including what people would hear is hundreds upon hundreds of people slowly walking through the halls when no one was there.
Oh, no.
And it's theoretically a residual haunting, not of anybody dead, but of survivors trying to find.
Oh, God.
We're not. We've strayed away from the.
I was just going to say,
stories.
we'll end on a nice feel-good story about the hundreds of people drowning.
Don't they?
And not being able to
I
be
remember
saved.
hearing about the Harpo, like on the original Chicago Ghost Tour with Richard Crowe. Like he talked about the ghost stories at Harpo Studios.
Absolutely.
No, the Eastland disaster makes me think about the Lady Elgin that you talk about in the Milwaukee Ghost Tour, Allison. But that also isn't a happy story, right?
No. It's not a happy story, but I can reroute us. I mean, we never really talked about the Milwaukee Public Museum and their happy ghost story, which of course admittedly starts out sad. We had our own Indiana Jones here before the character of Indiana Jones was even imagined. There was a man named Stephen Borhage.
Well, actually, I'm going to take that back. But about that the character Indiana Jones was even imagined, because I think that Steven Spielberg said that he got the inspiration for Indiana Jones from a character that Charlton Heston played in like The Greatest Show on Earth. And the only reason I'm saying that is because I wonder.
And what year was that, Mike?
Like 1951.
Okay.
So,
all right. Well, you may precede me then.
No, the only reason I wanted to say that, though, is I wonder if Stephen Borhage was also influenced by that film, and that's like Charlton Heston and the adventurer look and stuff like that, and that inspired him in his own life. I was
unlikely, because he was a baron from Hungary, so
shit.
he actually fought Nazis on horseback and was an avid fencer, and then later became an archaeologist and came to Milwaukee and was the director of the museum here from the Milwaukee Public Museum from 1959 to 1969. And he had a thick Hungarian accent and was quite an unusual character. He was like our Indiana Jones in a way, because he would travel all around the world retrieving artifacts for the museum. And he also had a lot of idiosyncrasies about him, like upon meeting a woman, instead of shaking her hand, he would elegantly kiss her hand. And
don't do that for the next couple weeks, folks.
Yes, no hand kissing or other, social distancing, people, social distancing.
Don't give them the old Miller Caves greeting.
Yes, he would kiss their hands. He would also, instead of wearing a winter coat, he favored wearing a long black cape that would stream behind him. So he was a very interesting personality, and everybody really loved him at the Milwaukee Public Museum. And even though he was a baron, everybody just, he's Baron Stefan de Borhage, but everybody just called him Steve. And
Hungarian barons, they're just like us, right, guys?
Right. So everybody just called him Steve, and he was a joker. But then, unfortunately, fate intervened, and he died in a car crash on his way to work in 1969, September 26, 1969. On his way to work, he perished in a car crash. And so that's not very happy. But soon after his death, his ghost was experienced at the museum. And at first, he was experienced on the elevator, where the elevator was mysteriously returning to the third floor, where all his collections are housed, or the fourth floor, where he had his offices. So it seems like he has this supernatural work ethic, where he keeps returning to work. But for him, it was a joyful place, and he also, as I mentioned, would play pranks on people. So the security guards will often report, hearing like laughter from the third floor mezzanine. And they will sometimes report smelling pipe smoke, which he was very fond of, wearing tweed blazers and smoking a pipe and
as you
looking
do.
very professory as you did at that time. And but they'll also see a dark figure rushing by on the third floor wearing a long black cape. And there was actually someone who was a contractor at the museum who was contracted to make a replica of a stone Mayan wall. And of course, that took a lot of work. I mean, to fit the fiberglass in such a way so it would be a good model for the incredible Mayan stonework of history. So he was putting those stones up, and he got to the last stone, and he was just so happy to stand back and survey his work that he left and he took a little break, and then he came back, and that stupid final stone was on the ground. And he was like, well, maybe I was a little hasty. I'm going to take some more time with it, make sure I really get it affixed in the right way this time. And then he was happy with his work. It was, the end of the day. He left for the night. He returned early in the morning, though, before the museum would open to make sure everything was just as he had left it. And, of course, he found that final stone on the ground again, at which point he screamed out in just consternation. I mean, he was really upset that for some reason that final stone would not stay affixed. And as he did that, he heard this uproarious laughter coming from down the hall on the third floor mezzanine. And of course, he thought that maybe it was one of his co-workers playing a prank. And so he marched off looking to give this person a piece of his mind. But it wasn't any current co-worker anyway. He went around the corner and he saw this shadowy figure in a long black cape laughing at him. And as he stood there, paralyzed with fear, watched this figure this figure turn and pass this ornate gold case with golden artifacts in it. And as this figure passed the corner there, he saw it dematerialize. And, this is something that this person will remember for the rest of their lives. So, certainly something is going on there. Other security guards had reported that certain motion sensors will go off, and they will follow the motion sensors as they trigger, and then of course nobody's ever found triggering those motion sensors. So apparently Borhege is still with us, and still with us in such a way that he likes to get people's attention and play pranks on them and have a good laugh. So even from the beyond, he's out there enjoying himself and spending more time in the institution that he built and loved in life.
All right. Well, way to turn that around, Allison, from the countless death in the Oprah studio to an exciting Indiana Jones-ish Milwaukee ghost. So good job.
Right. Goes on.
Yes, I'm bringing that around. And I think that takes us to the end of our Happy Ghost Stories episode. I can't wait to see we're going to be working on a song this week. And so we're going to have a brand new song for that as well coming up. So everybody who's been watching us today, thanks Bart, thanks to Stephanie for chipping in, having stuff to say. We really appreciate that. And now if people are interested in hearing some more of Scott's stories, where can they find that info, Scott?
What'syourghoststory.com is the best place to go.
Okay. And Allison, if people want to read some of your writing, I mean, if they really want to, where would they find you?
Well, I mean, they can definitely take one of the American Ghost Walks tours when they begin running again. But they can find my writing on the Mysterious Universe website. But also watch some videos. I've been places. I've done videos. I put them up on YouTube. And I've also done
she's done
interviews.
videos.
Hey, I've done videos. Thoughtful videos, Mike. Something you should try once in a while.
Right, fair enough.
Dusting off that noggin. But anyway, check those out and check out my paranormal interviews at youtube.com/Mothman.
Ooh, that sounds like fun. Mm-hmm. And Wendy, where can people find our fun paranormal songs?
Oh, you can find them all at othersidepodcast.com. There's 288 episodes to listen to. If you're bored, if you're sitting at home and curious about the paranormal. And every single episode has an original Sunspot song at the end. So you can check that out. Or you can also check out sunspotuniverse.com and find the full Sunspot catalog.
Sounds good. All right. Well, I hope that everybody has an awesome week. I think we should probably do this again before the lockdown ends because it was a lot of fun. And next time we'll have a different theme for the ghost stories and we'll bring you some more fun paranormal stuff from American Ghost Walks and see you on the other side. Also, anybody interested in taking a American Ghost Walk, we know they're not running right now, and that makes Daddy sad, but they are coming back soon, and we got a deal right now that every Ghost Walk is $15, and that you can use them. Yes, unbelievable. Every Ghost Walk is only $15, and that even includes the locations that would be more expensive, but then the price in Wisconsin is $20. But if you get them now, you can use them anytime in the future and for any tour, anywhere that American Ghost Walks runs for $15. So just want to say it's kind of a good deal. And AmericanGhostWalks.com has a little thing that says buy gift certificates where you can find that. So Wendy, you had one more thing before we signed off?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that if anyone has a happy ghost story that they'd like to share with us, and then we can share it next time. Or I guess it doesn't have to be happy, but if you have any unique stories of your own, that we'd love to hear them. So feel free to send those to us either through the See You on the Other Side Facebook page or us individually on Facebook, since that's where you're watching, or email us at show@othersidepodcast.com or Twitter @OthersideTalk.
Yeah.
What else?
And of course, Patreons can tell us directly at the next Google Hangout.
Yes,
right.
Which is coming up very soon. We're going to announce that tonight, probably.
Yep, that sounds good.
Yeah, and we love all your ghost stories, be they horrible and sad or happy, because all ghost stories ultimately are positive because you learn something and you remember someone. I think ghost stories are positive because they show you that you will be remembered. You will not be forgotten.
Connecting us to
unless it's a ghost that wants to kill you.
A beautiful thing too.
Wait, Sky.
Well, there's that.
Or if it's a drummer ghost that's just playing drum solos in your ear all the time.
Either way.
Well, there are exceptions to every rule.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you for everybody who joined us in the live feed. We had a really good time talking for you, and we'll do it again soon. Check out Scott, what'syourghoststory.com. Wendy and I at OtherSidePodcast.com. Allison, you can take her ghost to MilwaukeeGhost.com, and she wrote a couple of brilliant tours right there, and you can find her writing at MysteriousUniverse.org. And we'll see all of you guys on the other side. Bye.
Wash your hands.